I never thought I'd be spilling this HOA nightmare on the internet. But I'll never forget the look on Karen Whitaker's face when she realized the backyard she'd been strutting around like royalty for a year was actually mine. My name is Emily Harper, 32, marketing manager at Summit Media, right outside Denver. For most of my life, I bought the whole community first line. Block parties, neighborhood potlucks, those endless HOA meetings where everyone pretended we were one big happy family. Turns out belief doesn't stop the fines. It was Christmas Eve 2023 when the mask finally slipped. I stood in the corner of Karen's perfectly manicured backyard, an upscale setup I didn't pick but somehow ended up bankrolling. Watching her lean in her bored buddies and whisper loud enough for half the neighborhood to hear. I didn't want that loner here, but we had to invite her. Just smile, nod, and let her foot the bill again. 1 hour later, they'd all discover whose name was really on the deed to the house where Karen had been playing HOA Queen Bee. Growing up as the reliable middle kid in a family that later planted roots in Harmony Hills taught me more than I wanted. Karen Whitaker was the golden president, the flawless enforcer who married into the board with her slick husband Mark, popped out 3 picture-perfect kids, and kept the whole subdivision looking like a magazine spread. Her lapdog on the board, a guy we all called the baby because he was constantly bailed out of his latest flop, was the perpetual screw-up. And me? I was just there. The one who paid dues on time, never questioned the covenant thicker than the Bible, and moved in the second I could swing the mortgage. The first to graduate college, first with a real career, first to never beg for waivers. The one punished for actually following the damn rules. You've always been so self-sufficient, Emily, Karen would coo at every meeting, her fake smile stretched like plastic wrap, as if being independent was some kind of crime against the community. Her husband Mark, a real estate shark with an ego the size of his commission checks and ethics the size of a parking ticket, once sneered at a 4th of July barbecue that I was just another cold career woman with zero community spirit. Nobody jumped in. The board just nodded like bobbleheads while Karen patted my shoulder and murmured, "Oh, he doesn't mean it, dear." But he did. They all did. The pattern crept in like crabgrass. April 2015, the board's pet project guy showed up at my door with a napkin scribbled full of revolutionary community improvement ideas that smelled exactly like his last failed side hustle. Karen and the others have kids' college funds to protect, he whined. I wrote the $8,000 check for my down payment stash. The project vanished. He vanished for months. When I finally cornered him at Thanksgiving, Karen swooped in. "He's going through a rough patch, Emily. You know how sensitive he is. Besides, with that fancy job of yours, you can always make more." December 2017 brought the next masterpiece. Karen volunteered to host the big Christmas blowout for 30 families. 2 days before, she called me in fake tears. "I'm so overwhelmed. The kids are feral. Mark's parents are flying in." I was thinking caterers, but our card is maxed. I wired the $1,200 deposit. At the party, she accepted every compliment for the spread, while shooting me death glares not to spill who actually paid. When I tried mentioning my recent promotion, the conversation magically swerved to the bored baby's new girlfriend. June 2019 was the gut punch. The board updated the Community Legacy Plan, basically their version of a will, and announced the prize community pavilion and lake access would go to Karen's family and the baby board member. When someone asked about me, Karen patted my hand with that saccharine smile. "Emily doesn't need it. She has a career." As if my success was suddenly a disqualification instead of the reason they kept milking me. March 2020, another promotion I bled for. I texted a group chat. Karen replied with a sigh emoji and, "So wonderful, Olivia. The community is growing again." They turned my wins into proof I owed them more. By December 24th, 2023, I'd stopped expecting anything different. I showed up at Karen's house, the one with the crystal chandeliers visible through the windows and the massive fireplace decked in HOA-approved greenery, carrying an expensive bottle of wine I'd spent way too long choosing. The backyard glowed with string lights and tables draped like a wedding. I paused at the gate when I heard Karen's laugh cutting through the crowd. She stood with her bored inner circle by the bar, champagne flute waving. She doesn't have kids, doesn't have anyone. What else is she going to do but pay extra dues? Honestly, she owes the community Christmas. A cousin-type neighbor asked, "Didn't she question where the money went?" Karen smirked. "I just used her car details from the last dues payment when she bought those concert tickets for the baby's birthday." She never checked statements anyway. The bottle suddenly felt like lead in my hands. I'd spotted the $3,600 charge, but figured it was a glitch. Never imagined the HOA president would straight up commit fraud. I pushed through the crowd, 20 witnesses at least, and found Karen directing caterers like a dictator in heels. "You used my car without permission," I said quietly. She spun, annoyance flashing before the fake concern clicked on. "Oh, come on, Emily. With that fancy job, it's not like you'll miss it. That's not the point. You committed fraud." She laughed too loud. "Don't be dramatic. We're community. There's no fraud between neighbors." Her bored cronies appeared, faces tight. "Emily, please," Karen hissed. "Don't ruin the night." I looked around at the overpriced setup paid with my stolen money and realized none of them saw a problem. This wasn't one mistake. It was years of exploitation dressed up as community obligation. "Merry Christmas," I said, setting the wine down and walking into the cold Colorado night. Snow dusted the windshield as I drove home. A weird calm settled over the humiliation. They weren't my community. They were a debt I kept paying. What Karen and her crew didn't know, what I'd buried deeper than their ridiculous covenants, was that I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. My great-aunt had left me a small inheritance 5 years back. I'd never breathed a word, knowing Karen would find a way to community-ize it. I rented it out, invested smart, and in 2022 bought a second property outright through an LLC, a cozy craftsman tucked in a historic pocket. But the crown jewel? Pulse Creative Media, the side hustle that exploded when one TikTok campaign went nuclear in early 2023. By Christmas Eve, I had 220,000 followers, national clients, and a net worth north of $850,000. While they bled me dry, I built an empire. The most delicious irony? The dream home Karen and Mark had been renting for the past year. The one she plastered all over social media as proof of her perfect HOA life was mine. When the original owners foreclosed after years of neglect, I snapped it up through the LLC. Property management handled everything. My name never touched the lease. They paid rent to the woman they loved to bully and had zero clue. After Christmas, I quietly met with Morrison & Associates, specialists in tenant and HOA disputes. I pulled the Belmont Plaza venue footage. Marketing pros know every camera is rolling. Crystal clear video of Karen admitting the fraud. I waited for the perfect moment. It arrived when Karen announced in the group chat she'd host her in Mark's 10th anniversary bash, right in her backyard on March 2nd. Weather will be perfect. Don't worry, Emily, you're off the hook this time, followed by a laughing emoji that made my blood boil. I recruited my one real ally, cousin-level neighbor Jennifer, who'd watched Karen's reign of terror with growing disgust. "I'll help set up," she promised. I've waited years for someone to dethrone that woman. March 2nd dawned unseasonably warm, perfect for the outdoor spectacle Karen had planned. I dressed in a sharp black pantsuit that screamed quiet confidence, slipped the notarized deed and lease termination notice into my bag, and drove to the house I owned but had never stepped inside as owner. The backyard was pure HOA fantasy, string lights dripping like diamonds, floral arrangements that probably violated 3 color code rules. Tables and ivory linens. Karen once fined me $250 for using the wrong shade on my own porch. 40 guests mingled with champagne, laughing like they owned the world. Karen stood center stage in a silver dress, catching the late sun, Mark beside her in a tailored suit, both beaming as if the covenant bowed to them. In a way, they thought it did. I spotted Jennifer near the portable projector she'd secretly rigged for the anniversary slideshow. She gave me the tiniest nod. Karen saw me first. Her smile cracked like cheap foundation. "What the hell are you doing here?" Conversations died. Her bored cronies turned. confusion mixing with that familiar superiority. Karen's mother figure neighbor stepped forward. "Emily, we didn't expect you." I kept my voice even. "Just checking in on my property." Mark scoffed. "What are you talking about?" I pulled the folder, handed the deed to Jennifer. The projector lit up the massive screen. Deed owner Emily R. Harper, recorded February 3rd, 2023, 2:41 p.m. Silence slammed down harder than any fine. Karen went ghost white, her champagne glass tilting dangerously. Mark started stammering about some misunderstanding. "There's no misunderstanding," I said, pulling the next document. "I've owned this house for over a year, and I've canceled your lease renewal. 30 days to vacate." Whispers exploded like fireworks. Karen's mother figure rushed to her side, while Mark froze, face ashen. "You can't do this," Karen whispered, voice cracking for the first time in years. "Actually, I can. And there's more." Jennifer clicked to the next slide. The surveillance still of Karen admitting the credit card fraud at Christmas. "I filed a police report for the $3,600 you stole, but I'm willing to drop charges if you repay in full today." The baby board member shuffled toward the exit. Several guests followed, suddenly remembering they had somewhere else to be. "You're tearing this community apart," Karen's ally shrieked, arm around the trembling president. Jennifer raised her glass. "To Emily, the real backbone this neighborhood never appreciated." One older uncle-type neighbor shook his head with a rueful chuckle. "Guess I should have been nicer when you paid those flag fines without complaint." Mark dragged Karen away, whispering furiously. Within 15 minutes, the backyard emptied until only core board members and a few shell-shocked friends remained. The battlefield was now just lawn and string lights. The aftermath moved fast. Karen wired the stolen money back within 24 hours. Desperate to kill the police report that would torch Mark's real estate license. I didn't cancel the eviction notice. Some lessons need to stick like superglue on a mailbox flag. Jennifer dropped a cryptic TikTok with screenshots of Karen's "She Owes Us Christmas" text. It hit 150,000 views overnight. Commenters connected dots to my account. My followers doubled in a week. Mark lost 3 big clients after the viral thread named him. Their flawless HOA queen image shattered under public scrutiny like a poorly installed fence post. I went low contact with the board and the worst offenders. The baby board member moved in with his parents after his latest venture imploded. Karen and Mark downsized to a tiny condo, half the size of their former palace. Her social media went radio silent. I kept living mortgage-free in my Craftsman. Pulse Creative Media landed 2 national contracts partly thanks to the viral drama, and I started hosting monthly brunches with Jennifer and the neighbors who'd finally had enough of Karen's reign. Months rolled by, and the rage that fueled my plans softened into something cleaner. Not forgiveness exactly, but liberation. I no longer measure my worth by HOA approval or Karen's petty rules. I measured it by my own standards, my own wins, my own peace. Last week I got a text from Karen, the first since the party. "Can we talk?" 2 words heavy with desperation. I haven't answered yet. Some bridges deserve to stay burned. Others might be rebuilt stronger. What I do know is I'll never forget her face when she realized the anniversary party she planned on my lawn was the moment her house of cards collapsed. Whatever comes next, I'm standing on solid ground. The truth is revenge wasn't the sweet victory I imagined. It was necessary, a long overdue reckoning. But the real healing came from inside, from knowing my value without needing their validation. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making the Karen suffer. It's refusing to suffer anymore yourself. I think about that Christmas Eve often, standing outside in the snow after walking out of Karen's house, feeling utterly alone. I couldn't have predicted then that leaving wasn't an ending, but the beginning of something better. The first real step toward owning my life, my dignity, my worth. The journey from that freezing night to the sunlit backyard takedown wasn't just about exposing Karen's fraud. It was about exposing myself to the truth that I deserved better than endless fines and backhanded compliments. That boundaries weren't selfish. That success wasn't something to apologize for. My great aunt used to say, community is who treats you like community. I finally found mine. The house Karen once lorded over now has new tenants. A young teacher and nurse, couple who pay rent on time and actually follow the rules without turning them into weapons. Sometimes I drive past, not to gloat, but to remind myself how far I've come. From the quiet resident fined for every blade of grass to the woman whose name is on the deed. From the HOA ATM to the CEO of my own thriving agency. From chasing their approval to knowing I never needed it. Maybe that's the real victory. Not the public humiliation or the 30-day notice, but the quiet certainty that whatever happens next, I'll be more than fine. I'll be free. They say time heals all wounds, but that's only half true. Time doesn't heal. Choices do. Choices to set boundaries, to demand respect, to walk away when the rules become ridiculous, and to build something real from the wreckage. 6 months after the backyard bombshell, I got an email from an older board member who'd always been decent, unlike Karen's inner circle. Unlike the screaming matches from Karen's allies, his message was simple. I'm sorry I let it go on so long. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. He looked smaller, shoulders stooped. For the first time, he asked real questions about my work, not the perfunctory, how's the job, before changing the subject. I never understood what you do, he admitted. I never tried. We talked 3 hours. My business, my investments, his regrets for enabling Karen's power trips. She's not ready to change, he said at the end. But I am, if you'll let me try. I gave him the chance, cautiously. We meet monthly now, rebuilding slowly. He's even come to one of my speaking gigs, sitting front row with genuine pride. The baby board member reached out too, in his awkward way. A single text. You were right about everything. He's working as a barista now, living in a studio, finally learning consequences the hard way. We're not close, but the old resentment has faded. He was shaped by the same toxic system, just on the opposite end. Karen stays distant. I heard through Jennifer, she's in couples counseling with Mark. They're perfect HOA marriage cracking under financial pressure and the viral embarrassment. Their oldest kid starts college soon, a milestone that once might have been quietly funded by community contributions from people like me. Now it's loans and scholarships. I don't enjoy their struggles. The revenge burned hot and fast, leaving not glee but calm acceptance that some relationships can't, and maybe shouldn't, be saved. Pulse Creative Media has exploded beyond anything I dreamed. 5 employees, real office space, features in industry magazines. The irony isn't lost that the same board who dismissed my career as not real community contribution now watches from the sidelines while that career funds my freedom. Jennifer joined the team as client relations manager. Her network is gold. We laugh over lunch sometimes about the anniversary party, though the laughter carries the weight of what was lost. I always wondered why you took it for so long, she said recently. I thought about it. I guess I was waiting for them to see me. Really see me. Instead of just seeing a wallet with good credit. She nodded. Their version of you is too convenient. The reliable one who never complained, never asked for anything, could always be counted on to pay and stay quiet. The new tenants love the house. They sent me a thank you note and a plant that actually matches the HOA approved color palette. Something Karen would have approved of if she still had the power. I laughed when I read it. No dramatic revelations planned at their parties. Just normal life. I brought them a housewarming doormat that reads, "Home is where your story begins." Because that's exactly what this has been. Not an ending, but to start a new chapter where I write the rules. I've started dating again, something I shelved during the years of HOA drama and empire building. Last month, I met someone who actually listens when I talk about work, asks thoughtful questions, seems genuinely interested in my world. On our 3rd date, he asked about my family. Well, my community. It's complicated, I said. An answer that used to feel like an anchor. I've got time, he replied. I'd like to hear about it. About you. So I told him pieces, the invisible resident, The secret empire built while being used as the neighborhood bank. The house my HOA president lived in without knowing. When I finished, he didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." That night, I stood on my porch watching lightning dance over the mountains. I thought about trust, how it's broken, rebuilt, fragile, yet essential. How it starts with trusting yourself first. I thought about the house Karen once ruled, now filled with people who appreciate it without turning it into a stage for power. About the business I built from nothing that's now supporting employees and their families. About the boundaries I've finally drawn that protect a heart learning to open again. I thought about revenge, how it felt necessary but couldn't sustain me. How moving forward proved stronger than looking back. The rain started soft, then steady, washing the air clean. I stayed outside breathing in that petrichor smell of rain on dry grass and felt, maybe for the first time, completely at peace with every choice. Not because they were perfect or painless, but because they were mine. Later I sent a short reply to Karen's text. "Yes, we can talk. Not about the past, but about where we go from here, if you're ready." I don't know if she'll answer. I don't know if real change is possible after everything. But I know I'm open to the possibility of a new kind of relationship. One based on mutual respect instead of exploitation, honesty instead of manipulation, seeing each other as equals instead of one as cash cow and the other as queen. Because communities are like houses. Some are built on solid foundations that weather storms for generations. Others are slapped together on shifting sand, doomed to collapse the moment real pressure hits. The one I moved into proved to be the latter. But the one I'm building now, made of chosen neighbors, friends who became family, colleagues who became confidants, a partner who actually listens. This one has a foundation that won't crumble. I still think about that Christmas Eve sometimes, standing in the cold outside Karen's house with tears freezing on my cheeks. I wish I could go back and tell that version of me what was coming. Not just the revenge, but the redemption. Not just the confrontation, but the peace that would follow. I wish I could tell her that walking away wasn't defeat. It was freedom taking root. That the loneliness was actually the first step toward real connection. That what felt like failure was actually the beginning of a life where she wouldn't disappear into the background anymore. Most of all, I wish I could tell her that the community she longed for wasn't inside that overpriced backyard. It was waiting in the relationships she would choose, the boundaries she would set, the self-respect she would finally claim. A future where she wasn't the quiet payer or the reliable pushover, but simply Emily, enough exactly as she was. I can't travel back, of course, but I can honor her by living that truth now. By continuing to build the life that younger me deserved but couldn't imagine. Yesterday, I received an actual paper letter from Karen's closest ally on the old board, her handwriting instantly recognizable. I haven't opened it yet. It sits on my kitchen counter like a bridge between old rules and new possibilities. I'm not sure what's inside. More accusations, maybe a real apology, demands, or concessions. Whatever words wait, they can't define me anymore. Only I can do that. The house I own, the business I've built, the boundaries I've drawn, these aren't weapons of revenge. They're foundations of self-respect. Not walls to shut people out, but structures that support who I'm becoming. And who I'm becoming is someone who can look at an unopened letter without fear or rage. Someone who knows that no matter what it says, I'll remain standing on the ground I created. Someone who understands that while houses can be bought and sold, while communities can fracture and heal, while revenge can burn bright and then cool to ash, the only real home that matters is the one we build inside ourselves. A home where we are seen, valued, and respected, not for what we provide or how quietly we pay, but simply for who we are. A home where at last we belong. This morning, I finally opened the letter, sitting on my porch with coffee and birds singing overhead. Her words filled 3 pages, handwriting growing shakier toward the end like the emotions were too big for the pen. She wrote about regret for letting Karen run wild, for enabling the fines and the gossip, for taking me for granted. She wrote about fear of losing the community she thought she controlled, of aging out of relevance. She wrote about pride, stubborn, misplaced pride, that stopped her from celebrating my independence instead of resenting it. I don't know if you can forgive me, she ended. I'm not sure I deserve it, but I hope someday we might start again, not as old board members carrying the past, but as neighbors looking forward. I read it twice, searching for the old manipulation, the subtle blame shift, the martyrdom. It wasn't there. Just raw honesty I'd never seen from her before. I called her that afternoon. The conversation was short, tentative, decades of tension still hovering. I got your letter. I meant every word. I know. That's why I called. We agreed to meet next week at the botanical garden we'd all visited before the rules turned toxic. I don't expect miracles. One letter, one call, one meeting can't erase years of petty tyranny. But it's a start. Karen replied to my text too. Defensive at first, you humiliated us publicly, then softening. But I get why. I would have done the same. We're meeting for coffee tomorrow. Mark isn't invited, which is smart. Some conversations need to happen without the extra weight. I don't know exactly what I'll say yet. Part of me wants to list every fine, every insult, every time her rules cost me money and peace. But that road leads backward. Instead, I think I'll simply ask her to see me. Not as the reliable payer who could always be milked, not as the career woman who owed the community, but as a woman with her own dreams, boundaries, and value beyond what I can fund. I want to see her too, not as the tyrant who took without thinking, not as the president who betrayed trust, but as someone shaped by the same broken system, playing the role she was given just like I once played mine. Perhaps that's the final chapter of this whole saga. Not pure revenge, not even full reconciliation, but recognition. Seeing each other clearly for the first time. Acknowledging the damage and choosing whether to build something new or walk away with peace instead of bitterness. The baby board member texted yesterday, asking if he could stop by. Need your advice, he wrote. In the old days, that sentence always ended with a money request. This time I set the boundary up front. Happy to talk, but I'm not in a position to offer financial help. His reply surprised me. Understood. Just want your perspective on a job opportunity. You've always been smart about career stuff. He came over tonight, perched awkwardly on my sofa, looking older and leaner. I've been offered an apprenticeship with a carpenter. Not much pay at first, but I'd learn a real skill. What do you think? For an hour we talked pros, cons, growth potential, the satisfaction of building something tangible. Not once did he hint at a loan. As he left, he paused at the door. I'm sorry, Emily. For everything. I know, I said, and I did. Jennifer called right after, excited about a new client for Pulse. As we strategized, I realized how much my life has transformed in 1 year. From the invisible resident, fined into oblivion, to a business owner whose opinion matters. From the HOA cash machine to a mentor helping others build their own success. The house Karen once lived in is now just a house, an investment, not a weapon or a stage. After the call, I sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky amber and gold. I thought about houses and homes, born communities and chosen ones, revenge versus redemption. I thought about that Christmas Eve again, standing alone in the cold, feeling invisible. I wished I could tell that younger me she wasn't alone at all, that she stood on the edge of a life more real and fulfilling than she could picture, that the community she wanted wasn't behind her in that glowing backyard, but ahead in the relationships she would choose, the boundaries she would protect, the self-respect she would claim. Most of all, I wished I could tell her the journey from that snowy night to this golden evening wasn't about getting even. It was about getting free. Free from expectations that shrank her. Free from roles that trapped her. Free to become not who they needed her to be, but who she truly was. As the last light faded, I thought about tomorrow's coffee with Karen, next week's garden walk with the old board ally, the careful steps toward a different kind of community, one based on respect instead of obligation, choice instead of covenant, seeing instead of using. I don't know if these fragile new connections will grow strong. I don't know if the old damage can ever be fully repaired. But I know that whatever happens, I'll be okay. More than okay. Because the house of ridiculous rules they built, the fines, the gossip, the subtle cruelties disguised as community standards, has finally fallen. And in its place, I've built something solid. Something real. Something that belongs entirely to me. Not just a house with my name on the deed, but a life with my values at the center. A life where I am seen, valued, and respected. Not for what I pay or how quietly I obey, but for who I am. A life where, at last, I am home.